All right, so thank you so much for coming out tonight. Samuel and I have, as you may have already know, we were part of a conference down in Kannapolis, Concord area. Our Strong Tower conference that's put on by Ministry to Muslims, and we have titled this Beyond Our Strong Tower. So Samuel's going to share a little bit with us tonight, and if you wouldn't mind maybe keeping your questions to the end or write them down or something, we'll take some questions if you have them. But it's just been an absolute joy to have him at the house and be able to spend a little time with him and get to know him. And I know that you're going to be blessed by him tonight, so let's give him a welcome as he comes up.
Amen.
All the way from Australia.
That's on the other side of Florida, ain't it? Huh?
Whitehead. Okay, it's great to be with you here today, and I've really been enjoying my time in the US. I always do. And I've never been through on the East Coast before, and so it's been interesting to see all the forests and how far the forests go. Really lush, nice forests. So what I want to do today is I want to give you an introduction to Islam. An introduction to Islam. Now, why do I think this is an important thing to do? You might say there's not too many Muslims around here in Jefferson, and that's most likely the case. I don't fully know the population here. But what I do want to say is that the youth of today who spend a lot of time online have a lot of Islam put before them. You may think there's no Muslims around here, and that may well be the case. But as soon as you get online and the algorithm that directs social media to you and chooses what you'll watch finds out you're a Christian, the chances are you'll probably be seeing testimonies of Christians who have become Muslims. And that doesn't matter where you live. I unfortunately help families where a Christian child is converted to Islam, and very often they're done in very white rural parts of Australia, but the kids are online and they get tapped into this, and that's their community, and the parents have no idea what their children are up to because it's just another world. So I want to suggest that Islam's coming to us in two ways. It's coming to us in terms of the people around you that you work with, that you see in your area, but it's also coming through the internet and through media. And so that's why I think we should be aware of it. And what I want to do now is I want to begin where I always do, and that is I've got 2 sessions I'm going to give here. There'll be like a halftime break, have a drink of water or whatever in the middle, and then the goal of it though is evangelism. That's where I'm trying to head with this. I want people to understand Islam so that they can share the gospel with a Muslim in whatever situation that may be. So I just say that as by way of introduction. First of all, let's look at some terms. The word Islam is the name of the religion. Islam's the name of the religion. The Quran is their main holy book. They have other books called the Hadith. And these books, in practice, are just as important as the Quran. And there are huge collections of these other books called the Hadith. Allah is the name of their God, and Allah is in place of Yahweh. So Allah is not the word for God. It's not the word for God. It's the name for God in Arabic, or in Islamic Arabic. Muhammad is the name of their prophet, and a Muslim is the person who follows the religion. So just a few terms. You may not have known all of those, you may not have known one or two, but I'm going to be referring to them as we go through here now. Now what I want to do is I want to help you to understand how Islam prepares Muslims for Christianity, and how this is both a challenge and an opportunity for us. Okay, I want us to see how Islam prepares Muslims for Christianity and how this is a challenge and an opportunity for us. Now, often when we come to learn about other religions or other worldviews, we might begin by looking at what they believe. They believe this certain thing, they believe that certain thing, whatever it might be. And we're going to get into that. But I want to say that when it comes to Islam, it's not what do they believe that matters, it's when did they start believing it that matters. When did Muhammad come? Now, why is it that I'm saying we should begin with when rather than what? The reason is because of this, the time gap and what that means. So Muhammad dies AD 632. AD 632. Our Lord Jesus Christ dies and is resurrected AD 33. So that's basically 600 years gap. That's a long time. Think about 600 years in the past. That's a long time ago, 600 years. Now, this has a big effect on how we learn about each other. So when you read the Quran, what you will quickly find is that Christianity is a major subject in the Quran. And this is because Islam comes 600 years after Christianity. So you imagine that by the year AD 600, where's Christianity up to? Well, it's gone all up the Silk Road to West China. It's all across North Africa. It's down the Arabian Peninsula. It's up the Nile River, and there's a Christian kingdom in Ethiopia. It's gone all up into Europe, and the European tribes are now starting to convert to Christianity. It's up into Eastern Europe. It's obviously all across the Roman Empire. Christianity through its missionaries has gone to a lot of places. And the effect of this is that when you read the Quran, Christianity is a major subject in the Quran. Muslims learn a lot about you. They spend a lot of time learning about Christians. Very often when we come to teach people about Islam, we teach them the 5 pillars. This would be your standard book on world religions. You know how Christians write books on world religions? And you get the books on Islam, the chapter on Islam, and it will talk about the 5 pillars, the confession of faith, the 5 daily prayers, the pilgrimage to Mecca, the feasting and fasting during Ramadan, and the money for Islamic causes. And the Christian hears all that and they go, I've got to remember all these 5 pillars. The thing is though, when you talk to a Muslim, they never talk to you about the 5 pillars. What they talk to you about is what the Quran teaches them about you. So I've spoken to hundreds of Muslims. They've never brought up the 5 pillars for me. Yet as Christians, that's what we teach other Christians. We say, you want to understand Islam, you go to college, you've got to learn the 5 pillars. What I'm suggesting, and what I've found to be true, is that it's much more useful to teach Christians what the Quran says about Christianity. And that this helps Christians to understand, where the Muslim's coming from. Now, this, of course, works the other direction for us because Muslims learn about us. But when you read the Bible, you never read about Islam because it's still 600 years in the future. You imagine if Jesus was walking around Jerusalem today, he'd be talking to Muslims. You imagine if the apostles were in Syria, traveling around Syria, and Paul's up in Galatia in modern Turkey, he's going to be talking to Muslims. So if we were reading the book of Acts, if the book of Acts was being written today, it'd be full of Islam. And we'd know about it automatically. But what happens is, for us as Christians, Islam's just not in the Bible, so it's just an extra optional thing that we may not learn about or may not learn about at all. But for Muslims, it's compulsory to learn about Christianity. It is, in fact, the opposition that their book is written against. So what I want to do now is just quickly take you through some of the notes there, just to give you an overview of the type of preparation that Islam has for Christianity. Let's look at the first of them, point A in your notes. They, the unbelievers, said, "We killed the Messiah, Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of God. But they killed him not, nor crucified him. But so it was made to appear to them. And those who differ about this are full of doubts, with no knowledge, but only assumption to follow. For of certainty, they killed him not. Rather, God raised him to himself. So here we have the Quran speaking about the cross, the crucifixion. Muslims learn about the crucifixion. That's part of their teaching. And you can see what it says there. It says that Jesus only appeared to die. Exactly what that means, you'll get different views. But it's certainly not a clear declaration of the cross of Jesus, is it? He's only appeared to be killed and crucified. And so Muslims learn a doctrine of the cross. Just as we have books on the cross, they have books on the cross. The most common view is that Judas was substituted for Jesus. The verses don't mention Judas, but that's the most common view that sort of developed. Let's look at point B. They are unbelievers who say God is the third of three. What do you think that might be referring to?
The Trinity.
Yeah, the Trinity. So the Quran prepares Muslims for the Trinity. Let's read it again. They are unbelievers who say God is the third of three. No God is there but one God. The Messiah, son of Mary, was only a messenger. Messengers before him passed away. His mother was just a woman. They both ate food. That is, that they're both mortal. Now, you can see that Muhammad has an appalling understanding of Christian doctrine, because his understanding of the Trinity is God, Mary, and Jesus, which is what you see there, and it comes up in other parts of the Quran. So he has a very much an outsider's view of Christianity. There's no significant effort on his behalf to actually find out what we believe. But the bottom line is, Islamic leaders will read this and say, right, we're opposed to the Trinity. Even if the Quran got it wrong, or whatever misunderstanding it might have, we're still opposed to it. And so learning about the Trinity and how to confront Christians about it is just bread and butter Islam. Now you can see this verse also takes away the incarnation, because it's saying that Jesus is not God with us. So let's just think about that for a moment. You've got the cross, the Trinity, and the incarnation. That's a fair bit of preparation, isn't it? They're our unique doctrines. And this is just your basic Islam 101 that you've got to learn to refute Christianity about. Let's look at point C. It is not fitting for the merciful to take to himself a son. There is none in the heavens and the earth who will not come to the merciful except as a slave. And so you see here that Allah, the God of Islam, has no son. It's not just that Jesus is not the Son of God, it's that no one is. And this is another aspect to the Trinity, in that God is not Father. There is no fatherhood of God in Islam. Look at point D. Now, point D, we're going to change subject here. We've been looking at sort of who is God, who is Jesus, those types of things. We're going to look at point D, and let's see what it talks about. It's going to talk about the Bible now. And it is not possible for this Quran to be produced by other than Allah. It is a confirmation of what was before it, that is the Bible, and a detailed explanation of the scripture. So here's the Quran comparing itself to the Bible. That's when it talks about the scripture that was before it. It's talking about the Bible there. And it's saying that it's an explanation and a confirmation of the Bible. So that is, Muslims believe that the correct interpretation of the Bible will confirm the Quran, and that the Quran will actually explain the Bible to us. So that is, Muslims learn how to interpret the Bible. It's not just that they learn our main doctrines, they learn what's called hermeneutics. That is, how you interpret a book. Now, you can see here that it's an appalling way of interpreting the Bible. You should read the Bible or any book on its own terms and seek to understand the book on its own terms. The Quran saying, no, well, I'll tell you what it means. Let's look at point E. permitted to Muslim men in marriage are the chaste women of the believers, that is Muslim women, and the chaste women of those who have been given the scriptures before you, that is Christians and Jews. That is, Muslim men can marry Christian women. And they know this. Like, this is their scripture. I can marry if I'm a Muslim man, I can say, I can marry a Christian woman. Now, what this means is that when a whole lot of Muslim men come into a place, they tend to marry the nominal Christian women. If you remember when the Islamic State group was causing, was working for authentic Islam in the Middle East, and the madness that caused, about 400,000 Muslim men marched into Europe. And they know exactly what to do. They'll just take a local wife. And so either deliberately or inadvertently, Islam can establish itself incredibly quickly in new areas. And there are many things that the Muslim man has which women find attractive. They want to be providers for their families. They want to have children. And, for many women, that's, here's a man who likes me. He'll provide so I can have a family. That's an attractive thing. And he will say, we all believe in the same God. We just believe in one God. We all believe in the same God. And we believe in Jesus just like you believe in Jesus. And, but I mean, we don't believe in the Trinity. And, the young girl, she'll go, oh, well, my church never really teaches and explains the Trinity anyway. So it just doesn't make sense, does it? So she'll just convert to Islam. That happens, when I travel around, I always see that happening. Always see it happening. So anyway, there's romantic preparation. Romantic preparation. Point F. You will certainly find the nearest in friendship to those who believe. That is, you will find the nearest in friendship to the Muslims. The Muslims will find these people most friendly to them to be those who say, we are Christian. And so early in Muhammad's life, he was preaching in Mecca, and the Meccans didn't accept him. And a lot of his followers had to flee as refugees, and they were welcomed by the Christian countries around them. And so Muhammad saw that the Christians, gave refuge to people in need. And so he says here that the Christians are friendly to Muslims. And this is certainly where Muslims, most Muslims would want to be. They want to be your friends. However, that's not where Muhammad finishes. Where he finishes is with his Great Commission, and that's what we're going to read next. Chapter 9, or they're called surahs in the Quran, because they're not chapters like chronological, they're surahs in not chronological order. This is Muhammad's Great Commission, and it functions as the Great Commission in the Islamic community. You know how we have the Great Commission, and that is a compass for all Christian churches? This is Muhammad's Great Commission, and it's a compass for all the Muslim communities. So let's have a look at it. Point G. Fight those who believe not in God and the last day, and do not forbid what God and his messenger, that is Muhammad, have forbidden. Such men as practice not the religion of truth, that is Islam, being of those who have been given the book. So that's the people who have already got the book are the Christians and the Jews. So it's saying fight the Christians and the Jews and those who haven't, who don't follow Islam, until they paid the tribute, that is the terms of surrender, out of hand, and have been humbled. And so this was Muhammad's Great Commission. And this is something we need to think about as Christians. I guess for many of us, we've been influenced by Western Christianity, which has come out of the Protestant West. I want to propose to you that one of the reasons why the Protestant West has had such a big Christian stamp on the world is because the Christian East was not able to withstand this Great Commission. The jihadists come out of the Arabian Peninsula. They get rid of all the Christians who are in the Arabian Peninsula. They come out, they go into Jerusalem and Israel and Syria, these are all Christian places, Iraq, Egypt, all of North Africa, conquering, enslaving, basically getting rid of Christianity in those areas. And that's from here. Now, you might be saying to me, Samuel Green, I actually think you're misrepresenting Islam, because I've been told that Muslims only fight in self-defense. And maybe you've heard something along those lines. I know that in Australia, that's what would be taught in the schools. Islam only fights in self-defense, and the Islamic State and the Taliban, they're not true Muslims. Right? That's what we're told. They're not true Muslims. Let's keep reading to see the reason why you're to fight Christians and Jews, because he actually gives you the reason in the following verses. So as we continue to read this verse, he says, the Jews, so this is the reason, fight them till they're humbled and pay the terms of surrender. The Jews say Ezra is the son of God. The Christians say the Messiah is the son of God. That is the utterance of their mouths, conforming with the unbelievers before them. God fight them, how they are perverted. It is he who has sent his messenger with the guidance and religion of truth, that he may uplift it above every religion. So there's the reason, there's the context, and it's because of what they believe. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say because they fought against you. It doesn't say they were planning to fight against you. It says they believe Jesus is the Son of God. So if you believe Jesus is the Son of God, you are to be conquered and subjugated. And as I said, that's exactly what happened, and that's how the majority of the Christian world vanished, was from this. In the West, we survived, but if you go to the Council of Nicaea, it's a mosque. You go to Alexandria, where Athanasius was, it's a mosque. You go to Hippo, where Augustine wrote, it's a mosque. You go to Carthage, where Tertullian wrote. These are all the big theologians who hammered out our doctrines. It's all Islam now. Now, what about, so I hope you can just feel the weight of that, the preparation that they have for us, all of our distinct doctrines, how to approach the Bible, romantic preparation to establish yourself quickly into new communities, and a political agenda for friendship, absolutely, to be friends at first, and you should become Muslim, but if you don't, in the end, we're going to rule. That's the bread and butter teaching of Islam that Muslims will get about us. Now, what about Islam in the Bible? Islam in the Bible. Let's look at it from the other direction. Well, as I said, Islam's not directly mentioned in the Bible because it's 600 years in the future. So it's just not there. So for us as Christians, it doesn't really come up for us much. It comes up in general ways. So in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15, Jesus warns us against false prophets. So we have a warning there. You've still got to go and find out about Islam to know if Muhammad is a false prophet, because unless you find out, you don't know. In Galatians chapter 1, the Apostle Paul says that someone who teaches a false gospel, is to be rejected. And Muhammad certainly does that, but again, you've got to go and find out what gospel does he teach. The Bible doesn't tell us what gospel he teaches. It just tells us to watch out for that. Some people may say that Genesis 21 and 22, where it talks about Isaac and Ishmael, is where Islam is in the Bible, because Muslims claim that Muhammad comes from Ishmael, and so this is the second strand of Abraham's family doing religion. However, if you read Genesis, it never says that Ishmael inherits the covenant of God. He's blessed. He's one of Abraham's sons, so absolutely he's blessed. Abraham had many sons, actually. He had more than just more than just Ishmael and Isaac. He had many sons. They're all blessed, okay? And Ishmael absolutely was blessed. But it specifically says that the covenant, God's covenant with Abraham goes to Isaac, not through Ishmael. And And there's certainly no promise in the book of Genesis that out of the children of Israel there's going to come a prophet. So, in fact, in Isaiah 42 it says that the gospel is going to go to the Ishmaelites in the future. Now, what's the result of all this? Well, I hope you can just see how Islam prepares Muslims for Christianity in a way that Christianity does not prepare Christians for Islam. We learn about each other very differently. For Muslims, they learn specifically about you, whereas for Christians, we learn generally about Islam. We learn, your average Christian's going to know as much about Islam as he does about Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever, and they may know nothing. So Muslims are prepared. It's compulsory for them to learn about us. They have a huge amount of resources on how to talk to Christians because that's actually what the Quran says to do. The Quran spends a lot of time. So the Quran spends more time on Christianity than it does on the 5 pillars. And so all Muslim mosques and all that will be teaching about Christianity regularly and how to engage with Christians. So what have I got here? Whereas for a lot of Christians, Islam's a bit of a mystery. It's a bit of a mystery. And so what can happen is, if a Christian and a Muslim meet, generally the Muslim is ready to talk to the Christian. They're ready to go. They're ready to ask you doctrinal questions and, all manner of things. Whereas the Christian will be going, I want to talk to you, but I don't know anything about Islam. I'm going to have to start learning. So when a Christian and a Muslim meet, the Christian, that's when they start learning. The Muslim goes, I already know all your key doctrines. I know exactly what to ask you. And so that can be quite disconcerting for a Christian when they first encounter that. And you can see why youth would get online and get talking, and the Muslim just has all these questions, and the youth is just there going, wow, my parents never talk about this. We never talk about this at church. I didn't know about the textual variants in the Bible. And wow, I have no reason for what I believe. And this guy's got all the answers. So that's what can happen there. Now, I don't want to scare you with all this. Too late. But I do want you to understand the context. Because remember, the Christian church has been responsible for the religious education of the West. Okay, the church has been responsible for the religious education of the West, which means our Western universities, our Western leaders, our Western politicians know nothing about Islam. They just don't know about it. They might have historic Christian schools, but they don't really know about Islam because it takes a while to learn this stuff. And so they, by and large, won't know what to think about it. So it's a real challenge to the church, and it's a challenge that we need to take seriously. I do want to say that the main things we need to learn are actually just our own doctrine. But we tend not to spend time on, the Trinity, incarnation, some of those big doctrines. So now, that being said though, I actually want to say to you, it's an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity because just think about this. Muslims are meant to learn about Christianity. Muslims are meant to learn about Christianity. See, when I talk to Hindus back in Australia, and there's a lot around my university, Hindus don't have to learn about Christianity. They've got their own religion. They can learn about others, but they don't have to. The Buddhists I talk to, they don't have to learn about Christianity. It's not part of their religion to learn about Christianity. But for my Muslim friends, they're actually meant to learn about Christianity. And I want to say, if you get that in your head, it's a great opportunity. And if you've learnt your own doctrine, then you can easily talk to them. And so this is my first application, and we'll have a break in a moment, have some question time. This is my first application. My first application is if you meet a Muslim or you meet one online, wherever it is, in person or online, that you can simply start a gospel conversation by saying, what does Islam teach about Christianity? What have you heard? Now for them, you're asking them about Islam. Right? It's a really good question, because you're not starting an argument. If you just say, I think Jesus is God, and they say, well, we don't think if you start off there, you might get it straight into an argument. Whereas if you just start off by saying, what have you been taught about this? What have you been taught about Christianity? It allows you to find out where they're coming from. So I'll give 2 quick examples. I was talking to one Muslim man on my campus, a PhD student, and he said to me, I've been told you've changed the Bible and Jesus never died on the cross. And so that's what he's getting from satellite TV and the internet and all this type of stuff. I went, oh, okay. Just had a listen. I didn't try to correct him or anything. I just listened to where he was coming from. And I'll show you where we go in a moment. But that's what I did. I just listened to him and found out where he's coming from. I asked that same question to another Muslim man, and he said to me, nothing. I said, what have you heard about Christianity? And he said, nothing. My parents don't go to the mosque. We never talk about religion. And, I know nothing about Christianity. And, with both of those men, we've been able to read the Bible with them. With the last one, we read the Bible with him for about 6 weeks, and he came to understand the gospel. So it was really good. But this is a really good question. And the other good thing about this question is you're asking about Christianity, which you already know. Because part of the problem we've got as Christians is, because Islam's not in the Bible, we've got to figure out an approach that only requires you knowing about Christianity. I don't want to give you an approach where you've got to learn all this stuff about Islam. I just want to give you an approach about, which helps you to learn your own faith. And learning your own faith, you'll know how to present it to a Muslim. Because that way you've already got the tools to do it. So this is my first application that you'll see there. You say to them, what does Islam teach about Christianity? What have you been taught? And have a listen to them. Don't try to correct them. Don't rush them. Try to just talk them through it and really find out where they're coming from. You may say some things like, have you checked this out yourself? But just find out where they're coming from and what type of Muslim they are. So I'm going to stop there. It's an opportunity for questions. And questions, comments, and then I'll do the second part, which is then how you introduce the gospel.